This is a first ever. We're doing a live podcast. We've got an audience behind you. Maybe we'll edit some video in, George, so you can see on the podcast what's happening. And we also have a special guest, Mr. Bret Contreras. Cheers. Obviously, we're here in the Glute Lab in Fort Lauderdale. We've got Lexie Maitland.
Yes, excited to be here.
Evan Wells.
Hello, everybody.
And Dr. Bret Contreras. He went to Evil Medical School. He's a doctor. So the goal for today is just, we're celebrating a milestone, right, Lexie?
Yeah, so as of yesterday, ironically, we hit 1.5 million unique downloads on our podcast. So that's pretty exciting.
And if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, that's been growing as well. Like the
That
views on
has
there.
definitely been growing, yeah. So if you're somebody that likes to kind of watch us, I don't know, on YouTube, then yeah,
I
that's
watch
been growing.
podcasts. That's what I do.
You know, I've started to do that more too. I feel like I watch podcasts more than I watch TV now.
One of the 4 people at this table is going to be on Andrew Huberman. Any guesses on who?
Oh.
Evan is not it.
That is not me.
Dang it.
I have not told anyone yet.
Well, this doesn't come out for a while.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's Monday. No, the following
I haven't
Monday.
told. I'm not. It's in September. So
I didn't
was
say
gonna
anyone.
just be-
It could be me or Lexie. Anyway,
Yeah, right? Could be me.
have you done a podcast in person before, Bret?
in person ever with anyone.
Like a live with the audience and everything?
No, I don't think so. I've probably done like 70 podcasts, but never live.
Yeah, but you're very comfortable speaking in front of people, so
I say things that'll get me canceled, so this is very risky.
listen. The more click-worthy things you say today, the better it is for our podcast.
Okay.
So if you're going to get canceled, at least let us be the beneficiary.
Got
right?
it. Got it.
Let us clip it and post it and say Bret Contreras is a terrible human.
That's what friends are for.
And, George can edit things too.
Yes.
So I think it would be fun because our podcast is really about giving back to you guys and the people that listen and trying to understand the landscape of bodybuilding in general, physique sports, the science, the not science part of it. Like, there's so many layers to bodybuilding, and we try to explain it, as someone who's been coaching for 15 years. Bret, you started training people. How long have you been training people now?
Probably almost 30 now.
Yeah. And Evan, you started competing when?
Oh, over 10 years ago, but I've been training ever since playing football in college.
And
so
Lexie,
it's a big part of my life.
I met you right after one of your shows.
Yeah, right after I moved to Tampa and started school at UT.
Yeah. So we've all been at this a long time, and I think we start to see patterns and trends repeat themselves, but there's always new information coming out. And that's one of the great things about being friends with Bret is I think all of us have strengths and things that we love. I actually considered, because I was really good friends with Lane, going back to school and getting a PhD. But what I learned in the master's program was I hate research. I like the results that I get with my clients and in the gym. You, Brad, and there's a few other people that are more passionate about research than anything else, right, Bret?
I don't know. I like coaching more than anything.
You do.
Yeah.
But you also sit on the phone with Brad for hours.
Well, I also love reading research, but I think I think throughout my evolution, you're a lifter, you're a coach, I'm still probably a lifter first.
Yeah. But you bridge that gap between.
But then I'm a coach and then a scientist.
Because there are some people that are so scientific that you go, okay, but you've even said to me, and we won't say any names, but these are really scientific, but that wouldn't work in the gym.
Yeah.
I know because I've tried it. So you can tell people that haven't applied what they've researched.
But by the way, that's why I always have a gym.
Yeah.
And I think I've created a good system because I don't charge people here, so it's packed. So I work with a ton of people, but it was not to make money. It was so I can train a lot of people. So I never get esoteric. You start just being scientific and not reading research, but you're not grounded in practice. Then you get theoretical. You get, and you say some really stupid things that if you're a coach, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do that when these girls train glutes 3 times a week. I'm supposed to give them 4 stretch position exercises that they'll never recover from. That's the dumbest.
Right.
You don't work with people. It's a dead ringer. If you bash exercises, you're bashing cable pull-throughs, but that tells me you've never trained pregnant women because they love it. So I can pick, and now it's the whole industry because honestly, for the first time in like the history of mankind, it's like the death of the practitioner.
Right.
You actually work in your field, and it hinders your ability to be popular online because you could be pretending to work with people and just spending all your time making social media content. Like, that's probably true for every profession, but every hour I spend here in the gym could actually be an hour spent creating social media content, and just fake it. No one checks. Like 99% of the fitness people out there have literally never even worked with someone in real life, but they have a lot of followers and they say bold claims, and not you guys, but like the people, their viewers believe it, and then I get sent this stuff, thoughts, and I can't help but click on it because I'm like, my next reaction post, and I'm like, how could people be this stupid and believe it? But I was trying to learn some more about economics, the tariffs.
Yeah.
So it was like
Let's
8
not
months
talk
ago.
about politics.
But honestly, I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know if these tariffs going to be good or bad. I watched one video on YouTube with like, this economic wizard teaches at like Berkeley or something, and he's been involved in and he's saying one thing, and then I click on another, and I don't know who to believe because this is not my area. It made me realize like this is how the fitness industry is. I don't know who to believe. I have one person saying this, one person saying the complete opposite. Who do you know? And they both had credentials.
Yeah. And it's tough because the voices are often the most confident, are very least the most educated and experienced. What's that? The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep.
Right when you start learning something, you think you know the most, and the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So you become less confident.
I saw this post on, I don't go on TikTok, but someone sent it to me, and it's this, I must have been like a 21-year-old kid, and he said, it's really sad that an everyday lifter on TikTok knows more than a PhD.
Yeah.
And he was serious. Like, he was dead serious. And I'm like, God, they so don't understand. And I get it. First of all, I get it because like on TikTok, you're seeing all the optimal stuff now, which I remember I spoke for you like 4 years ago. I made a presentation on this optimal thing. But like, yeah, you learn all the best exercises, you learn the theories, but they don't understand what a PhD gives you in terms of like being able to evaluate evidence and being able to, you don't, when you have a PhD, you know what you know what you don't know, what would be required to be an expert on certain topic. Like someone asked me something, I'm like, I don't know the research on that. It would take me a few days to really dive into it and formulate an opinion, but you just don't say bold claims because you don't know. And that's the problem with the younger generation. They don't know what they don't know.
Like people with high educations, like, I've had the benefit of that, is you never get a black and white answer.
Yeah.
Like you can ask them like, what's the best exercise for this? And it's always going to start with, it depends on this factor or this factor. There's never like however, if you get someone who's a TikTok influencer, you should never do a preacher curl. That is the worst exercise. Who would ever do a chest fly, right? That's the kind of feedback you hear when there's basically an application for almost everything out there.
Or you can never do a cable chest fly or never do a dumbbell chest fly, but cable chest flies are better. So you should never do a dumbbell one. There's always a yes or no. And it's really, I think, important to note too, because it's really grown over the past at least 4 to 5 months, like the evidence-based or the bro kind of side, and then there's the scientific side, and they're like almost at battle with each other. And it's like camps, just like anything, it's tribalism. One's on this side and one's on this side. And there's never like anyone that can do, meet in the middle with it.
Well, let's open it up to you guys. I'd love to hear your perspective because we tend to look at things through our scope, right? And I love getting your guys' perspective. That's why we love to do the podcast, because we're learning like what people are seeing and hearing about and how we can address things. And we know a lot, but we don't know everything. And so we're also learning as we go. You'll never meet anyone that goes to more shows than me, and you'll never meet anyone that, knows more research than Bret. And so like as a group, this is our passion. I often hear people say like, you'll know people's passions just by their actions. People talk, but you see what people do on a daily basis. So I'd love to just open it up. I know we had a question, and it better be a good one, or you might have to leave.
Yeah, anything
Jamaica?
goes.
So we got a microphone. Hopefully it picks it up. If not, we'll repeat the question. You let me know, George. But yeah, so for those that aren't able to see the audience, everyone here, raise your hand if you've competed or you're thinking about competing. Yeah, everybody. Okay, perfect. You compete? Oh, that's fine. Yeah. How did you do? All right, so.
Okay, so here's my question. When you're in prep on a calorie deficit, you still are supposed to lift really heavy. But if you're not really growing muscle because you're in a calorie deficit, why lift super heavy? Why not just lift heavy?
I want Lexie to take this one, but I know Brett's itching.
Oh, I feel like that can't put me in that position.
Okay, so the
You
question
better
was,
not
so
screw
for people
this
that
up.
weren't listening, when you're in a contest prep and you're in a calorie deficit, why lift heavy? Why train hard if you can't build muscle? And this is not a statement I'm making, this was the question.
Okay, well, I feel like now you're putting pressure on me because Brett's gonna like come in with this great answer afterwards. I generally say the reason you want to train heavy in a calorie deficit or in a prep is to maintain the muscle that you have, right? I mean, I do think towards the end of prep, the last several weeks, and I think this hits some people more than others, your strength does take a little bit of a decline, and that's generally when I'll pull back on like volume, maybe adding in an extra rest day so we can really focus on quality over quantity, or focusing on maybe not progressive overload from like a weight standpoint, but focusing a little bit more on tempo, mind muscle connection, pause reps. So I would say the biggest role that training heavy does play in a calorie deficit or a prep is just your muscle retention and holding on to that muscle while you're in such a severe calorie restriction phase.
Before Brett or Evan jump in, this is what I want to say. The mindset around training when you're in prep, first things first, you can continue building muscle long into contest prep. The difference is like the longer you've been training, the less likely that is. Yeah. The more advanced of a lifter you are, the less likely that is. But you're still getting better. You're still improving. And yeah, the last couple weeks when calories are low, cardio is high, energy drops, you want to avoid injury, right? We're not trying to pack on pounds of muscle, but it's very clear that you can continue to add muscle throughout the process. Especially nowadays, a lot of people are taking hormone replacement therapy where hormones become compromised in prep. As a natural lifter, I feel like it's super important at the end of prep that I am putting all my effort into my, and Evan and I have talked about this a bit too. We might even back off total volume, but we do not back off intensity. No. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Brad even posted something the other day saying basically like, you know, the battle between what's better, high reps or low reps. And he said, it's the intensity. It's getting closer to failure that is more important.
Yeah. My thought on it is your body doesn't know the reps you're doing or the weight you're doing. It's more its relationship to failure. But I do think keeping things heavy are also a good gauge on how much muscle you're able to retain throughout a prep too. So it's a good kind of marker in that aspect on things. And I'm also, I mean, people are in different camps on this stuff too, but I think keeping the intensity higher and maybe lowering the volume, because you should be able to lift pretty close to what you started at prep, maybe a little bit less, but your endurance isn't going to be there because you're not going to have as much gas in the tank.
I think there's a difference too between, like, especially deep into prep, you can kind of tell, like, musculature wise, like there's a difference in somebody's like just muscle and how it pops depending on how intense they're training. Would you agree with that? Just like how they look, like the muscle
personally,
fullness?
yeah. And I mean, you know, I've been training for 30 years, so I can tell when my training hasn't been as good. I've gotten a lot of compliments this year from people. I've dieted down. I'm almost contest lean. And people are like, wow, you look different this year. And it's like, I have not missed a workout. And my intensity has been so much better this year. I went earlier this year to Core Nutritionals headquarters, which is my sponsor, and trained with Doug Miller for a couple days. And I swear, training with him for like 3 days, it flipped a switch in me. Because when you train with people that train like an animal, it literally makes you go, oh, I was being a little bitch. Like, I can do more. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Brett.
So it's a nuanced topic. I will say one thing Paul mentioned and Lexie alluded to, like in the research, it shows that upping your volume doesn't help. Like you're depleted. You're in a calorie deficit. You don't try to burn fat and be like, I'm going to do more volume so I burn more calories, and that's not helpful. You do want to keep I call it effort, but people call it intensity. Intensity can mean two things, effort or load. So I just call it effort, but you got to keep the effort high and try to retain most of your strength. One thing you'll PR on is body weight stuff. My girls will get their first Nordic ham curl coming up. Like they'll lower themselves and come up the week before prep because they're so light. And that's that. And then they'll set a chin up PR. But they'll go down on certain things, like obviously their squat, their close grip bench, their military press, their deadlift, their hip thrusts are probably going to go down a little bit. But it all depends on how you've trained all year. Because I know a lot of competitors that screw around all off season, and then they crush it during their prep, and they're PRing the whole way through because they chilled during their off season. But if you're pedal to the metal the whole off season, you're going to lose some strength. You're lighter. And then as far as like, can you grow muscle? Can you actually recomp? I think it's in the research, you see it all the time. I've seen it with my girls year after year. They don't bulk and cut. They stay the same weight and just get stronger. But I will tell you, when I prep people and you give them actual DEXA scans, my clients always lose muscle, but it's probably water weight too, though. It's really hard to have someone lose, 10 pounds in 10 weeks and have them retain all their lean mass. So it's nuanced, but yeah, you don't want to just do more volume, do more sets. Don't think of it as like, I want to burn as many calories as possible with my workout. Say, I want to provide the stimulus. Think of like, it's kind of like the signal you tell your body when you're a marathon runner versus a sprinter. The marathon runner wouldn't want to have a bunch of mass. They wouldn't want to have a ton of extra muscle because you're signaling your body to be good at marathon running versus sprinting and lifting weights signals your body to be a denser unit, to be more powerful, to create more power per unit. So when you lift weights, try to remember it's a signaling ordeal. You're trying to tell your body, get denser, keep your bone density, keep your connective tissue strength, and grow muscle instead of thinking of it as a volume thing, as a way to lose weight. You worry about your weight loss through your caloric intake and your cardio and your steps, not your weight training. Yeah. With the weight training, you want to not just go all out. I see so many competitors, how could they have a good workout? You woke up and did cardio, you did 50 things, and then your workout is at 6 p.m. and you're exhausted and, you didn't eat properly before. Like, think of it every day as like, how am I going to give myself the best chance of maintaining my strength or setting a new PR? Well, I mean, everyone likes to train at different times of the day, but you would probably like have the right food. Like, some people like to train fasted in the morning, that's fine. But like, for me, I would probably wake up, eat something an hour before, not something too big though, have my energy drink, and then go in and be focused with no distractions, put my phone down, have my music playing and hit it. And go to the right gym that has the right equipment, etc. That's the missing element, I think. People don't prioritize that aspect.
Yeah, it's one thing when you said you haven't prepped yet, you're in prep now, this is your first time. You'll learn throughout the process of prep. I always tell, we talk about this on the podcast, the funnel. Mm-hmm. By the end of prep, you become so in tune with when you feel good, when you should be eating, and you almost become robotic with your time management because you go, if I wait till 5 o'clock, my workout's going to suffer. I've got to train between 10 and 2, have a good meal, and then the energy dips because my body fat is so. These are things you'll learn throughout the process. But
absolutely,
I think an important part he touched on too is I don't know anyone that really doesn't lose muscle in prep. You just want to lose the least amount possible. Like if you're dieting and going to lose any decent amount of body fat, a little bit of muscle is going to come along with that. Doesn't matter if you're natural, enhanced, it's going to happen. But you want to reduce that amount.
Yeah, and I think that's why like all of us as coaches are a little bit more, we promote longer preps a little bit more than like those quick kind of crash diet. Like I feel like long gone are the days of the whole 8-week prep, 6-week prep. I mean, maybe some people can get away with that, especially if they just maintain a very lean physique. But I think that's why we're all big advocates on like the longer preps. That way you can retain as much of your muscle as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that
It
was a good
doesn't
question.
always happen. It depends. Like, I remember this. This made me so mad because this girl came to me and she even showed me her stats. Like, she actually gained muscle doing plyos and silly circuits. Why? Because her coach put her on Anavar as a newbie. You know, like jumped right in, hired a coach, throws her on Anavar, did the dumbest workouts ever, and actually looked amazing. Because if you have good genetics and you do a little bit of Anavar, you can do jumping jacks and look pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm just like, you could have just not done the Anavar.
Trained right.
And trained properly. But these coaches are so silly. It's these male, I don't know, these male coaches that they'll train bodybuilders one way and then they train these bikini competitors and think you need to do jumping jacks. And I'm like, I think that's going out of style though.
I think so.
That was popular
You were in
10
California.
years ago.
That's when I first met you. You're like, I hate bodybuilding because all the girls that come to my gym, they look amazing and they're so strong, and then they do one prep and they look terrible and they lose all their muscle. But it
It's
was
kind
the
of
style
funny.
of prep
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
were under.
Yeah. I would build them up and then they'd be strong.
Right.
Then you can starve them. They'd actually look amazing for their first show. And then their second show, they'd look a little worse
Right.
because they would just run them into the ground with excessive cardio and starvation. And I'm like, God, they looked better. I deliver these coaches these, up on a silver platter, and then their first prep, they look great. And then they don't understand the reason they looked great is because they lifted
Right.
heavy weights and got really strong, and their metabolisms were amazing. Not to say there's like metabolic damage, but just to say they were able to eat,
Get your microphone.
3,000 calories.
All right, who's got another question? Who's got the mic?
Okay. My question is, if your goal is hypertrophy mainly, and you like training hard and long, and you have the time, how do you go about finding max recoverable volume? And at what point from like training with a lot of volume do you start seeing like negative adaptation?
All right, so the question was, how do you figure out how much training volume is enough and how much is too much? There's actually a scientific term for this, MRV, maximum recoverable volume. And there's a lot of literature on this stuff, Brett. Like, this is one thing that I remember studying. A lot of it was more based around endurance type stuff. But like, what's your experience, Brett? Because your girls want to train every damn day, right? You have to, but you found this mix, and you were the first coach that I ever worked with that was like, hey, you can let your girls train glutes 3 days a week, but you just have to control the volume per session, right? So how would you answer this question? Because it's a tough question, especially for us gym rats that want to be in the gym 3 hours.
I mean, how do you figure out your MRV? It's trial and error, but I kind of think everyone does too much. But then my friend Brad would argue with me because he'd cite, there's like 5 studies now that show it's like the more volume, the better almost. In the research, it's like the more volume, the better for muscle growth. Up to like 50 sets a week, you can, but they're for short durations, usually on college males or like Navy cadets.
Are they usually newly trained as well?
Not always newbies, but no, not always newbies, but young, still young.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like sometimes hitting a few muscle groups hard, but they're not
So
doing
let's
50.
quantify it. What are things to look for that you might be doing too much? Like
But
increased resting
I'll
heart
tell you
rate.
from the research perspective, the more the better. From my experience as a coach, everyone does too much. Half of you would be better off saying, screw all this volume. I'm actually going to just focus on getting strong at 3 exercises, I'm going to get strong at box squats, RDLs, and hip thrusts this year. And you can do the other exercise, but really try to get stronger. That goes back to what we said earlier about the mental focus, because you tend to do these workouts where you just drift through and go through the motions and get your volume in, and you're looking at your program, your app, and you're ticking off the boxes, but you didn't get stronger at anything. Yes, you did a grueling workout, but did you PR? did you go up on? And you can't go up on every set of every exercise every week of the year. You have to pick your poison. You have to be strategic.
Yeah.
What I realized works here for this situation in Fort Lauderdale, I push my girls on their first exercise of the day, and then I don't on the second and third and fourth. Because if I did, they wouldn't be recovered by Wednesday. Because if you guys were training with me and I'm hovering over you, you're filming it, maybe I'm filming it, and I'm like, you know, we're doing rotisserie hip thrusts. You got 405 on the bar. What's your record? I've done 12, coach. All right, let's go for 13. And then we got 6 girls all watching you, cheering you on. 1, 2, come on, come on. And I have the bell there around the corner of the first gym. Like, we ring the bell. We get a little fire hydrant siren, siren thing that goes off. You're really amped up. So there's like a difference between training to failure when you're calm versus an amped up training to failure. You do that too much and you screw yourself. Try that on every exercise, every set of every exercise of every workout, and you'll spin your wheels. So, this is a very nuanced topic. But anyway, yeah, I think people do too much volume. I think for women, the exercise selection matters. Mm-hmm. Doing a set of barbell walking lunges or, conventional deadlifts to failure is going to beat you up a lot more than doing kickbacks and abduction to failure.
Yeah.
And that's my thing about MRV. It's got to be a mixture. That's what I like about my rule of thirds for glute training. Third of your volume from vertical hip extension exercises tax you the most. But they also work the legs. The vertical work the quads, adductors, and hamstrings too. Then you sprinkle in, then you do another third with the horizontal hip extension. Those don't beat you up as much. They're mainly focused on the glutes. Then you add in abduction. That taxes you the least, and that's just like extra glute volume that doesn't beat you up too much. It can't really hurt you unless you do too much volume and irritate your TFL or something if you go too heavy. But
so if you're looking at symptoms of something that might be a problem, you start losing some strength.
Yeah, do you ever
Joint
feel
soreness.
good while you're working out? Do you ever be like, I know I'm going to PR today? Because if you're always exhausted
Yeah.
and you're tired and you're looking at your workouts like they're marathons and you're just like, oh God, this workout's going to last me 2 hours, then cut back. Do 2 sets. Why do you have to do 4 sets of every exercise? Why do you have to do 3 sets of every exercise? Autoregulate. I go in the gym sometimes, not like I have the best physique ever, but like sometimes I go into the gym and I'm like, oh, I'm beat up and I want to get back on track. I'm just going to do 1 set of like 4 exercises. I literally do 4 sets, but they're all awesome sets because I did 1 set of 4 exercises. It makes me feel good and then I'm not too beat up. But I auto-regulate. I always tell with my Booty by Bret program, I'm like, think of this workout as an 85% recipe with 15% wiggle room to tailor according to your logistics, your preferences, your biofeedback, because I don't want you just sticking to the program to a T. If you dread low rep deadlifts and I have you doing sets of 5 and you're worried about hurting yourself, do a set of 10. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. Up the reps. You like doing dumbbell Romanians instead of barbell. That's not a big deal. Switch it. But I'll mainly switch your volume. Don't always just do this number of sets. The goal is to get stronger over time, not the volume.
Yeah.
Volume is not. I had this argument with an evidence-based person, and they were like, volume is king. I'm like, progressive overload is king. Too much volume. If volume was king, the more the better. The more progressive overload, how can you argue if I could squat 2,000 pounds? That's never been done. I would obviously be way more muscular. If I could squat 600 pounds, I would have to, the only way to do that is to have, you can say the nervous system, but no, my body would snap. I would have to have stronger bones, stronger connective tissue, bigger quads, bigger adductors, bigger glutes. That's the only way I could create the joint torques to move that weight. There's no way around it. You need a certain amount of muscle mass per your physique, per your anatomy, to be able to generate the torques and ground reaction forces to lift this weight up. No way around it. Progressive overload has to be king. and your volume isn't static because it's influenced by your sleep, your stress, your recovery, your nutrition, all those things. So it took me a lot of years to become in tune with that. But what are some indicators? Yeah, you show up and you're just like, I know, you don't even go for PRs anymore. I do 3 sets of, I talk to people, what's your workout like? Well, I start off with hip thrusts. I do, 185 for 3 sets of 12. And then I move on to Bulgarian split squats, and I do this weight for this many reps. And then I do Romanian deadlifts for this weight for this many reps. And I'm like, you're doing the same workout 3 times a week and you're not going up. Why would you grow? And also you're hip thrusting 185, if you have great genetics and you're on Anavar and peptides, maybe you can grow from that. But my girls, that's some of them start warming up with 225. A lot of my girls warm up with 225. They skip the 135. I don't tell them to, but they're like, Coach, that's too light. It's too easy. My girls are doing 405. You think you're going to grow? You think you're going to have huge glutes lifting 185 every time? So yeah.
I remember being young and being excited that my bench was a warm up at 135.
Right.
Because when you just want to, as a kid, you want to bench that. And then you start to work out with a 45.
I remember those days.
So Bret, would you say that effort or intensity and frequency is more important than the volume per workout? Because that's why you do your girls train glutes 3 times a week, but the volume is super high. They can never do 3 times a week.
But also it's the exercise selection.
Yeah.
Because we do, this tends to work out well. And you could do it in any order. Pick a squat lunge movement, pick a hinge, pick a thrust bridge, pick a abduction. And I've kind of, just recently, I haven't even posted about this, but I've changed my views on abduction. We have always done frontal plane hip abduction. Well, frontal plane, I just made a post on this with Val in it. Frontal plane works the middle and the anterior glute medius. I think we want posterior glute medius. And when you bend over, you work more posterior glute medius, but you also involve the glute max, especially the upper glute max. So I'm doing more horizontal plane, transverse plane abduction with my girls. So yeah, so if you pick a squat, lunge, and a hinge, those are both vertical. They beat you up more. Don't obsess about volume on those. Don't obsess about doing 3-4 sets on those. Know that those tax you, and especially if you hit a PR, like you hit a PR on your Smith machine reverse lunge, you got to train 2 days later. Do you need to do a second set? You provided a growth stimulus. That's what I've become really good at. That's why I know who trains people in real life. I watch these, even like evidence-based people, and I see their workouts, and I'm like, oh my God, you're a bro who trains legs 1 day a week, and you train these women the way you train legs 1 day a week, not understanding that they got to repeat it 2 more times. That is literally the dumbest workout for women who train 3 times a week. And you look at the comments and no one calls them out because it's a fake industry where no one trains anyone anymore. It's just so fake. And everyone's just a bunch of fucking morons. I'm sorry. But anyway.
Clip that. Everyone's a bunch of fucking morons. Clip that.
But
we're going viral.
It's the blind. Yeah,
That'll be the title.
it's the blind leading the blind.
That's a great one.
But then, and I look at that and I'm like, no, that wouldn't work. That workout would crush this person. But yeah, do you really need to do more sets when you PR? You just PR. Do you need to do another set? Warm up and feel good and then go for it. But there's so many different strategies. This requires a whole article.
Yeah.
I realize I've never addressed this topic because I have my program and I'm like, I tell people do 3 sets. I don't tell people how to go about it.
Is this in your book?
No, I
Oh,
never
okay.
have addressed this really. So you could do 3 sets, same weight, 3 sets, ascending weight. You could do 3 sets with the last set AMRAP, but at some point, which we just talk about volume, number of sets, but it's kind of a tricky topic because we don't talk about it that much. If you do the 3rd set AMRAP, at least 1 set is to failure. Should your first set be to failure?
Nope.
You keep doing 2nd and 3rd set, then you blew your load.
Something I've been doing lately, because I think I've gotten a little bit leaner, is I use the first couple sets and I stay far away from failure.
Yep.
And I've lowered my reps and I make that last set all out.
So
and
that's
then
what I
maybe a
do,
drop
but
set.
it's kind of like you really only did one set.
Right.
But it's
But-
3, I know.
But you almost
And
need
that-
to like, at
Yeah.
least because I'm old, I can't just go from
Same.
a 35-pound dumbbell press to 125.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got to get those acclimation sets.
Yeah. But then I will say, when you're going for a PR, if you do too many acclimation sets, feeler sets, whatever,
Yeah.
that's one way I get girls to PR. They come to me and they're like, well, you know, they do so many reps
Yeah.
for their warm-ups. And I'm like, stop. And it's funny, now my girls just know. Like Estrella just walked in. She's my strongest hip thruster here. If I said, Estrella, you're going to do, we're going to go for 495 on the hip thrust today for max reps. You just hit 12, right? 2 days ago? 12? She just hit 12 reps with 495 on barbell hip thrusts. But if I said to her, what's your warm-up going to be? She'd say 3 sets of 10 bodyweight squats, 135 for 10, 225 for 5, 315 for 3, 405 for 1. Then you're ready to go with 495. Many of you out there would say, no, I would do way more. You know, I would do 135 for 15, 225 for 12, 315 for 8, 405 for, and then by the time you got to 4. So, but those, they can all build muscle, but how are you gauging your progressive overload? How are you going about it? And then the other thing I want to say is like, yeah, it depends on if you're, it also kind of depends on your variety. Like when you're doing more variety, you can throw in more sets, but should we be repeating movements throughout the week? I always look at it as like with hip thrusts, you got to say you do hip thrusts 3 times a week. Well, one day needs to be your main day that you're trying to progressively overload. That's your standard hip thrust, full range. But some days you can do pauses, some days pulses, some days whatever, higher reps, some days lower reps. But you have to kind of don't try to go up on all 3 days every week. We don't talk enough about your strategy, and that's so important. But I see most 99% of lifters, probably 90% of lifters they just go through the motions.
Oh,
Check boxes.
They just tick off the boxes. I fulfilled this. I did these sets. Good job. Pat on the back. And they really don't maximize the
So
stimulus.
just what you guys are in store for today when we train.
Well, I mean, think about it. How many times do you go to the gym, just like a normal gym, and when you look around and take inventory of the people training around you, I mean, most people are just going through the motions. And I think when you're just used to seeing that all the time, you kind of get used to that. And I think it's easy to fall into that trap as well.
That's why this gym is different.
Yes.
You know, the environment here, when Brett's here with his girls, they're like kind of following each other around. And if Brett says, hey, we got a PR set, everyone gets around them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
It's unique.
but they talk, they ramble, because they don't mind resting. In fact, they love the rest.
Well, what'd you say? Like, you spend more time filming them than you do training them?
That's funny.
But I'm like, okay, let's do this, because they want a PR. It's a different mindset. You want to be recovered. But yeah, then I don't do that for, like I said, I'll do that with hip thrusts or whatever. Say they're doing squats or RDLs or whatever, because I vary it too. You can't just focus on hip thrusts 52 weeks out of the year. You start getting overuse, you can get knee pain, your hips get beat up. Estrella, she gets that. People talk about people lie and be like, oh, hip thrusts are dangerous for your low back. If you have good form, if you have proper technique, we don't have anyone here that hurts their low back. It's the hips taking a beating. So Estrella hits rotisserie hip thrust, you're stronger. That's the rotating pad. You could probably use like 20% more weight, 30% more weight. Estrella's done 700 or like 675 for 6.
Those
Yeah,
sort
for
of
8.
reps.
Yeah, I think it might have been 6. Was it 8? Oh, okay. Because I did 8 to beat you. Because I did it, and the girls were making fun of me. They're like, "Oh my God, I can lift more than coach." I'm like, "I did it one time, and then I did it the second time, and I'm like, holy shit, Estrella's strong. I weighed twice. I literally weighed twice as much as her, and could barely get what she got." But anyway, she'll have like bruises or like you'll have like almost lumps. When you get freakishly strong at hip thrust, if she does that on Monday, then Wednesday I can't have her load up. So in that case, you've got 3 options. You do the kneeling glute isolator machine from Glute Builder, which is like a hip thrust, but you're done kneeling in position, or you do single leg hip thrust, or you do hip thrust with someone sitting on your lap, facing backwards, partner hip thrust, because the surface area is spread out and it doesn't hurt your hips. But no one even knows that in this industry because no one actually trains anyone. Like I said, it's a fake industry. And they pretend that hip thrust builds your waist.
What are they?
What are they, Brett?
They're fake fucks.
Clip it, number 2. All right. We got another question. Yes.
So how important is exercise sequence in a contest prep deficit or an aerobic?
All right, so the question is, what is the importance of the order of exercise selection? And I think Bret just kind of addressed this. So I'll let you go ahead and address this again.
We don't have enough research. We do have research kind of indicating that the exercise you do first sees the best results. You see the best gains on
Wasn't
it.
this like an early Joe Weider principle, the prioritizing
The
training?
prioritization principle, and
Yeah.
there's some merit to it. You know this.
You guys know who Joe Weider is? Anybody? No.
No?
What about Jack LaLanne?
But yeah, like, and so for some of my clients in the past, when this upper glutes in bikini became such a big deal, I'm like, okay, do abduction first. How many of you have ever tried doing abduction first in the workout? Not just as a warm-up, but like I'm going to hit abduction hardest because it might be best for growing the upper glutes. We don't know though. We don't know what with glutes. We don't know. And I think there's some interesting research out there. For example, trying to make this short. We also don't know what's best for glutes training in the lengthen range or the shorten range. If you look at studies that look at just one exercise like squats or kickbacks, going deeper appears to be better. But if you look at comparison studies, there's one study, so Kubo looked at squats, deeper was better for glutes. Now, Kubo 2019 looked at squats. Now 2023 is a conference abstract that was then mysteriously never published, but it showed doing lengthened partial straight leg kickbacks work the glutes better than doing full range, but who the hell does straight leg kickbacks? And then there's the 3 studies that compare. There's Plotkin 2023, squats and hip thrusts tied for glute growth. Squats were better for quad and adductor growth, but not for glutes. They tied in all 3 regions. Thank you, Estrella, good call. And then you got Bartholomew 2024, squats and step-ups tied, hip thrusts and reverse hypers for glute growth. And then you have Cassiano 2024, which showed that one group did stiff legs and leg press, the other group did leg press, stiff legs, and hip thrusts. But when you added on hip thrusts, you saw linear growth. So most of the guys in the industry are like, oh yeah, okay, this just shows that hip thrusts are good. But some people pointed out, well, hip thrusts are really good because more sets doesn't just equal, it tapers off. The more sets you do, you get, the first set is always the most important. By the 3rd set, you've already reaped 95% of your gains or whatever, you know? So this shows that hip thrusts might be even better than, so anyway, right now we know that hip thrusts appear to be just as good as squats, step-ups, stiff legs, leg press for glute hypertrophy, but you can do a lot more volume on them than you could. But anyway, here's some interesting stuff to consider, and this is like the stuff I geek out on, but it might not even matter. There's one study that showed that when you pump a muscle up, you get a pump, then you stretch it, you have a way more passive muscle force. Yeah, think of like this muscle being, I remember I had this huge glute pump once from whatever the hell I did, and I remember bending over and being like, just stretching. I was like, damn, it's stretching more. So we don't know how muscle grows. We don't really, everyone's like mechanical tension. Okay, great, mechanical tension. But what does that mean on a signal and sensor level? What what are the molecular signals? We don't know the answer to this stuff yet. Is it stretch? What signals through stretch? Is it tighten? Is it something with the nucleus flattening out? Is it something to do with the lateral force transmission through the costomeres? Is it something in the Z disc, like bag 3, filament 3, bag C? We don't know the answer to these things. We have all these candidates. And I don't think we're going to know anytime soon. So it's everyone's just guessing. And then you have the guys who really research hypertrophy, like me, going, I don't have a fucking clue. And then you have these TikTokers being like, it's so basic. It's so simple. And yeah, it is so simple. Get freakishly strong at squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, military press, chin-ups, and bench press. Trust me, you'll be jacked as fuck. That's simple. But it's also very nuanced the more you get into it. But anyway, okay, I'm rambling. If you pump up a muscle, there's a couple studies showing that you get more passive forces. So should you do hip thrusts before you do like lunges? And if you train glutes 3 times a week, should you save the stretch position for last because it's the most fatiguing? Or is stretch position the most important and you should prioritize it and put it first? Should abduction go last because it's the least important, it's the least effective? Or is it the most effective for upper glute and we should prioritize it? We don't know. So I like having different phases throughout the year.
Just give us the answer, Bret.
Yeah. So,
Tell us what to do.
It's simple, Bret.
so that's why I think it's good, since we don't know, some months, in my Booty by Bret program, I have a hip thrust month, a hip thrust focus month, a squat focus month. We're still doing squats on the hip thrust month. We're still doing hip thrusts on the squat focus month, but that's not your priority. We have a strong lifting month where you focus on getting strength on everything. We have a glute squad special month where I introduce all the stuff the glute squad tends to be liking at the moment, which just like new stuff. That's the only
Is that
month.
like the staff favorites at Blockbuster?
Yeah, it is, exactly. But it's the only month not focused on progressive overload. So it lets them, 1 out of the 5 months they get to chill. But the bottom line, we have a deadlift focus month. And some people love deadlifts for glutes. Other people feel everything in their hammies or their low back. But it all works out. And we don't have the answers.
Yeah. So try it all. But yeah, I tend to focus on being warm and that primary first lift being the one that you want to focus on that day, and then accessorizing around that.
Especially in a caloric deficit.
Girls focus
Same.
on glutes, guys focus on chest and back. And I always want to do the thing that I'm trying to focus on first
Same.
in that workout.
Your weak
Well, if you're
points are
doing
most
full
fatiguing.
body, but if you're doing body parts, like if you're doing glute day, what's the best order?
Right.
Should it go hip
but if you're
thrust,
doing
then
multiple
hip
days
thrust,
per
then
week-
lunge or squat, then hinge, then
But
abduction?
if you're doing 3 days a week, wouldn't you try do something different each day?
You could do that too.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
another.
how I write the programs.
And what if you're in like a severe caloric deficit with that?
Then should you do hip thrust first and the
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thought is if you're in a severe
Yeah.
caloric deficit, do the most taxing thing first because you're going to run out of gas. But in an off season,
We got another one? Another question? Any Mo questions? All the way up here, all the way from Dubai. By the way, who came from further than Dubai?
Spain.
Spain.
That is incredible that
Marty.
you came all the way. We're so
Qatar.
grateful.
You lose. And it's Qatar, not Qatar, because I watched the movie. All right.
This is a very specific question. So there is a few break in terms of information. My information is from like the doctors, so who are training. So how do you think about training and if the programs is really realistic for someone who doesn't osteopathy? So that is essentially sort of a permanent hold on the stuff. So essentially you're looking at intra-abdominal pressure, load, being problematic, and not incident rates. But how do you think about programming when you're trying to get strong, but you're also trying to mitigate risk when you're back into a surgical situation? Obviously, the programming the permanent holds and change. So how do you think about that? And it's a two-part question because I've never seen people on stage with osteopaths. So your point of view is coaches and competition prep, what do you think in terms of someone's ability to, you never get how diet and training wants to be. So, what do you think in terms of like actually being a stage of competition prep? So two questions, training.
I have actually seen it. Yes, I've seen people compete. As far as the risks,
Can
I
you
mean-
repeat the question real quick? I'm so hard to hear with this air conditioning.
yeah, so she has an intra-abdominal hole. She has an ostomy bag. And so she's asking about
Okay.
how to train effectively to
train,
build
like being able to-
without injuring. I mean, that's such a specific question that you'd almost have to involve your doctor, make sure you're not doing anything. I mean, this is where like, yeah,
I feel like you'd almost.
this is where load would be less important and more training to failure. That's where
Yeah,
I would,
and I feel like you'd almost have to, if you had the capability of doing so, like work very specifically with somebody in person, like taking a couple sessions and just going through and finding what you can do and what you can't do and kind of tailoring it towards yourself like that. I know that's not always easy to do, but I feel like that would be a good situation for what you're asking about.
Yeah, I agree with Lexie. Like, so it's easy to figure out as a coach, like, because you just do the exercise. How does that feel? Do you feel it at all? Okay, that's a good one. My guess is single leg exercise and abduction would be better for you. And the exercise that that you have to be like that would be like leg press, your squats, your deadlifts. But
so I'm going to say something controversial. You can call me a fucking idiot if you want. I consistently feel like the best glute builder is a step back deficit lunge.
I know you love
elevated,
those.
Done properly, it isolates the glutes so well, and my glutes and everyone that I train tell me their glutes are fried after this. Obviously, it's a little more taxing on the body than like a hip thrust. And that might be something that works very good for you because you don't have to have the inter-abdominal pressure, like pressing a bar.
Yeah.
Getting really good and strong at those.
Talking about like a front foot elevated split squat.
Yeah, basically you stand on a raised platform and you step
back.
backwards, but you do not descend with the knee progressing forward. Your body goes back so the knee stays over the... So because I had some knee pain years ago, so I had to like alter my training, and I noticed I got really strong, my knees got healthy, and now I can squat and deadlift again. But also I noticed my glutes grew, which was not the goal. But, and they're always sore after it.
yeah, I would say, raise your hand if you get the most sore from lunges or a split squat. Almost every hand here came up. Raise your hand if you get a pump from doing lunges. No. Raise your hand if you get the best pump from hip thrust type movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we used to think people criticize, say the pump does nothing, or like metabolic stress does nothing. But if you cherry picked literature, you could kind of make an argument. But anyway, Paul's favorite glute exercise is the deficit reverse lunge, contralateral load. He just holds onto a dumbbell in one hand, the opposite hand. And
Didn't you just make a post about that was actually slightly more effective than the ipsilateral load? Okay.
And I think it's even better if you hold on to something for stability.
Oh, I always have my hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I do think I would love to see that verse. I think that might be the best glute exercise there is, but you can't do that, but you can't do it 3 times a week. So
No.
If you did that progressively, week 1 you might be able to, but then week 2, what are you going to do? Keep adding? So that's an exercise where I would throw in like 1 day a week.
Anytime I have a girl get up to like 70, 80 pounds in a hand, that's about where they start to tap out. With like hips, knee, ankle starts to bother them.
Yeah, I want to tell you, Joa here does 100 in each hand, walking lunges with 100-pound dumbbells. She does barbell with 225, six steps each, or 12 steps, 6 reps each side.
That's incredible.
I can't do that right now. But yeah, I think that's such an amazing glute exercise. I disagree with you that you said it isolates the glutes really well. I think when you train the glutes in a stretch position, you have to work a lot of adductor. It's absolutely necessary.
I definitely notice more overall volume to my leg from it. That's why I keep them in.
But yeah, your quads, so it's quad adductor and glute. Not much hammy because the knees bend. But I think hip thrusts are more isolating. But who cares what's better? It's about what's the best program. Yeah. And that's why the question she asked earlier about maximum recoverable volume, what's the best program? If he said, okay, deficit reverse lunges are best, you're just going to do those. Could you get nice glutes from those? Sure. But you probably could only do, if you did like 3 sets really hard to failure. That's the thing, and no one goes to failure on those. They can go so much harder. And so once you start going to failure and utilizing progressive overload, like Dre, our client Dre, she gets so strong at hip thrusts, everything's daunting. So we switched to the plate-loaded reverse lunge on that machine over there. It's the harness goes over you, and then Dre's tiny, but she's doing 225 pound reverse lunges for a set of 8, with her little frame. And then she's like, I have to do that on Friday because on Monday she needs that extra day because it beats her up. And then I was doing 3 sets, then I switched to 2 sets. Then eventually I was like, we're just working up to 1 set, 1 all-out set, just so she could be, because I also had single leg RDLs on that day, which when you get strong, no one uses heavy weight on those either. It's like B stance and single leg RDLs. People just take a 35 and go, oh, I love those. I feel them so much in my glute. And I'm like, you're doing them that's a fake exercise for you. You know what I mean? You're just doing them to do them. Because if you really did them hard, I mean, you can do Romanian deadlifts with 185. 185 divided by 2 is 92.5. And then you're using a 35 for your B stance. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I digress. I think deficit reverse lunges are amazing. I think you should absolutely do them. But if you're like me, they make my adductors so sore that two days later, I have to chill. So Paul probably likes them because you train legs twice a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you train legs 3 times a week, you can't save that for Friday, save that extra day, or don't do as much volume.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we probably got time for one more question if anybody has anything to discuss. And then we're going to get into some training stuff, or maybe we'll have a little round table. We'll talk ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
All right, I got Uno Mas. You good, George?
Last one, best one.
Oh, shout out to Reaction Energy Drinks for hooking us up. They,
Yes, thank you,
they
sir.
sent us a bunch of drinks for this.
These are mighty good too. I've never tried them until today. I'm impressed.
If you guys are listening to the podcast, go to their Instagram page and comment like Pro Physique or something.
Yep.
This is the pink lemonade flavor, and I like sweet things, and it is definitely very sweet. Probably comparable to like Ghost.
Yeah.
I like it.
And they're doing this hasn't been released yet. They're launching within the next month. So.
Yeah.
All right, who has
All
the
right,
mic?
last question.
But I have a question about reverse diet. So after you did a reverse diet, you did maintenance for a couple months, and when you do a mini cut, like how long do you do a mini cut for without damaging, your metabolism, not damaging, but affecting your metabolism, how do you do another long reverse diet?
So before I answer the question, and I'll repeat it back for the podcast, how much weight did you gain in the reverse?
10 pounds.
That's good. And what's your stage weight?
119, 120.
So let's just call you 120. You're at 130. Why in God's green earth are you doing a mini cut? You're not even 10% over your stage weight. Photo shoot? Okay. All right. So we're going to address I'm going to address 2 questions here. We're going to go 2 questions here. First question was, after a prep, you reverse diet, you maintained. How long is it okay to do a mini cut for, and how is it safe for metabolic adaptations and things like that? Lexie, I'll let you talk about this, because I think this is a common question we get.
Yep.
Competitors always come out of a show. If they put on too much weight, they want to go into a cut.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the first thing I always address is like, why do you want to do a mini cut, right? Because I think as coaches, we can all agree that there are some people that they just get a little afraid when they see that scale go up, and then like their reasoning behind wanting to do a mini cut is like in the moment they feel so uncomfortable, whereas you kind of have to talk them through like the longer term, like what we're really trying to do here. So I always like to kind of try to get to the why first. Like, why are we wanting to do the mini cut? Especially depending on how long we've been in the reverse diet for, right? And like what the goal is. So if it's a competitor that needs to add a lot of mass to their frame to be competitive in the future, generally I don't like to do mini cuts. I mean, unless it's an athlete who's, let's say, taking a full year off, right? If it's an athlete who's only taking, 4 to 6 months off from prep, I'm not as apt to do mini cuts. I don't know if that's just me or if you guys are the same way. I just feel like it kind of takes away from time that we could be building muscle, right? So I would say the longer you are growing and the longer you're taking away from prep, so like I would say a year plus, I'm a little bit more apt to doing a mini cut with a client. But I also find that with mini cuts, they're tricky because I've noticed a pattern and a trend. Not everybody is this way, but I feel like with a lot of athletes, it almost takes a couple of weeks to like truthfully start to see that scale move, right? I think a lot of you guys that have been in prep before sometimes can attest to like those first couple of weeks when you start. You may not see a ton of movement on the scale. You may feel leaner. You may like feel like things are happening, but you don't really get that scale validation for a couple weeks in. So it's like if you do a mini cut and the mini cut's supposed to be for 5 weeks, right? And it takes 3 weeks to get the scale to move. It's kind of like, what's the point, right? So I don't know if that really specifically answered the question. That's just my thoughts kind of on mini cuts in general. But going back to the why, I think that's important. It's like, do you want to do a mini cut just because, oh, I had a bad body image day and I'm not liking the way I look? Or is there like a deeper rooted why behind doing it that could potentially be beneficial in the long term?
Yeah. I typically don't like to do mini cuts with athletes unless they're about at least probably around a year off season. Then I think it does have some benefits to do that. Or if the weight kind of gets out of hand and we want to pull it back down a little bit. And if I have some athletes that, gain a little bit more than I think is optimal for an off season, sometimes, 8 weeks for a prep, I'll do like a 4-week mini cut, then kind of sit in maintenance for a month to set the body up in a position to be able to push down a diet. Mini cuts can be a bit difficult, especially in an off season, because if you want results in like, typically a mini cut I look at is somewhere between like 4 to 5 weeks, somewhere in that range. And you can get really aggressive for 4 to 5 weeks with it. But that's also a big flip to switch if you're going to get aggressive to see any movement in that time. Calories are going to have to go down pretty drastically. Cardio is going to have to go up pretty damn high. And when people go from doing 20 minutes of cardio to like, oh, geez, you moved me up to 50 minutes of cardio like right away and calories got cut to here. It's like, well, we're trying to get as much body fat off as we can in a short period of time before your body has a chance to adapt to it, right? So again, it's what are the reason we're doing this for? We all work with a lot of women. A lot of women deal with body issues when their weight starts to get up a little bit. But what is our end goal here? Like, what is our end goal? And also deciding on if you want to do, or if you want to talk to your coach about doing a mini cut, let's say your calories are somewhere like 2,100 or something, like not even crazy high, and you want to do a mini cut. Well, what's making up those calories, right? Are you taking a bunch of liberties here? Are you eating stuff your body doesn't digest well? Is that why you're feeling bloated? Like, let's remove some of those variables first that I think can improve your body image before we talk about doing that, right? So that's kind of my thought generally with it. But mini cuts I do find to be effective, and I've started using them more before we start a prep. Number one, to see how the body reacts. And number two, I feel like once we start a prep, movement happens way, 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 way quicker than it typically would. But I don't run a mini cut directly into a prep. It's like a mini cut, then at least probably 30 to 45 to 60 days to where we kind of sit more in a maintenance, I call it like a hold phase, to where I'm like, okay, we're at a spot to where we're good to start prep here. Let's hold this for a month or two, and then we kind of start pushing down. Almost like a reverse out of a mini cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to address the initial question, 10 pounds over stage weight is very lean, especially if you were actually stage lean, right?
Yeah.
So did you win? Were you in contention to win, or was your feedback you need to be 5 or 10 pounds leaner? Very different, and it doesn't really matter. So then you're still very close to stage weight. So then I would really, because typically when someone asks me for a mini cut, it's like they went on vacation, they had their cycle, they ate a bunch of crap, and they're like, Coach, I don't like how I look. And I say, well, let's, like Evan said, let's take a week, get back on your prep foods that you digest well, get up and do your cardio in the morning, get a couple good nights sleep. And usually by the end of the week, they're like, you know what? I'm happy again. But again, as a coach who coaches almost exclusively women, it's your body. I am going to do what you want me to do. I might give you my suggestion and say, hey, like, I don't really feel like we need to do it, but if you want to be 5 pounds leaner, let's try it. But let me know if your workouts start to suffer, if your relationship with food starts to suffer, and let's go from there. You know, I think I'm a coach that does not like women to gain a lot of weight in the off season. A lot of coaches try to force that hand on women. I try to keep my competitors as lean as possible while feeling good and training hard. I think it just makes for a more competent and effective prep.
Yeah.
Then, you know, I literally have people come to me, yeah, my coach wanted me to gain 30 pounds. And I'm like, why? When you start prep, you're just losing 15 pounds of fat that you didn't need.
Right.
There's no correlation between tons of body fat and more muscle.
No, and you're going to lose more muscle in a prep the more body fat you have to pull off, right? And I do think keeping a good body composition where you're feeling good and confident is important in off season because it's going to make you still enjoy the process, enjoy the sport.
Yeah.
Like almost no females I like to know like to get 20 pounds above their stage weight. Of course, everything's dependent based on your height, right? But like most people do not feel comfortable at that. And that, what I feel like is a big reason that a lot of females fall out of the sport with it is because, and especially in young competitors, I coach a lot of young competitors. I had a consultation with a girl last week. I think she's like 22 years old, and her coach pushed her up. I mean, started working to push her up like 15 pounds directly. And she was like, she had 35 pounds to go at 5'1" to get stage ready. She didn't get to the end of that prep. Of course she didn't. She went into place to even begin a prep at that point, right? And not only did that situation, she didn't get to stage, she didn't want to do the sport anymore. Completely ruined her from it. Right. So everyone's individual when it comes to these sorts of things. And it's our job to put you in the best position, but you also have to be comfortable with it.
Yeah. I feel like when you gain too much weight in the off season too and become uncomfortable, I feel like that's when training also kind of starts to suffer.
Does.
Because I mean, how many times do you hear people say, oh, I don't even want to go to the gym. I don't even like the way I look. I'm wearing sweatpants, baggy shirts, like, and not for nothing, when you get to that level of just not being comfortable anymore, you start to become more sluggish in the gym too, right? So I feel like there's that fine line. But I think as coaches, it's our job, like going back to the mini cut, I think it's our job to educate you guys on like what's going to be good for you in the long term, right? Because I think that's a lot of times why we all need coaches, is to sometimes talk us out of what we want to do in the short term for that instant gratification and to kind of bring us back down in what's going to be good for us in the long term.
And it's also for a lot of females, especially if you're a newer competitor and you've never seen yourself that lean before, it almost becomes addictive.
Yeah.
It does. And it's really difficult to flip that switch off, being like, this is not reality. I cannot be like this all the time. And it's tough to flip that switch in your brain. Look, I get it. Trust me, I do. I think probably at least half the females I work with struggle with that part of it. Most of them do. Because they feel like, oh, I've looked this way, I can look like this all the time.
We all know when you're close to stage lean, that's the most positive attention you're ever going to get on social media, in person. And yeah, you start to want and crave that. But understanding that this sport, it's a lifetime. Bret and I have been training in the gym for over 30 years, and it ebbs and flows, and you've got to get comfortable with the process. That's bodybuilding. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I think for me, I've never even gotten into single digit body fat. The lowest I ever got according to DEXA was 13%. But even then you start to you look great naked, and then with clothes on, you look like you don't lift.
You got to buy tight shirts. Or jorts, tighter jorts.
Yeah. But for men, you have that issue. But I feel like men are better at bulking. Like, I can be fat as fuck, and I can just ignore this. I do not even look here. I look here, and I'm like, look at Trapzilla checking in, and I'm like, damn. And I just I'm like, look at my quads are bigger, and I just pretend this. I can somehow live in this fake universe where this doesn't exist, and I just. That's great. Yeah, but I don't know many women who can do that. They fake it. They're like, you'll see them post like, Quadzilla, like, checking in, off-season gains, loving it. No, you don't. You don't love it.
It's, yeah.
Lying.
I only have one. I can think of one client on my roster off the top of my head, and she's the only one I know that like just really embraces like her off-season. And I don't think it's like, I think it's
like if you told her Trapzilla, she'd be okay with it?
Oh, Absolutely, yeah, she really would. She's got like, but she's the only one that like I can confidently say, like, and she's not
What?
faking it. But yeah, most people really struggle.
I
with
say my Fort Lauderdale squad is more like, because we came up in this era where everyone wanted to look like a Victoria's Secret model, Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. You had to just be really skinny.
Yeah.
And now I love these Fort Lauderdale girls. They're like, God, I look disgusting, and I lost 6 pounds, and I'm like, you look great to me, but then they're just focused on their butts. Like they're like, no,
want
my
more of the
butt.
curves.
Yeah, I lost my butt, and I'm like, trust me, you still like their perception. Like, well, you still have a huge butt. Like your glutes are huge. They're comparing themselves to the girls here with the biggest glutes, and they're like, you know, my measurement went down. I'm not even 40 inches around now, and I'm like, I love that though. I love that they're like, I got to gain 6 pounds back, because that's all different than the whole my era of growing up. You never heard that. People would be like, you lost 6 pounds. Yeah, you look great. The leaner, the better. But anyway, I've never been a fan of bulking and cutting because it applies to bodybuilders who get down to lower body fat. But if you're a male that's never gets below 15%, and you're a woman that, you know, probably below 20% for a woman. A lot of my clients never get below 20%. You know, I don't train a lot of competitors, but they look great. You can look great at 20% body fat. You can look lean still as a woman. For a man, 15%, you can, if you have good genetics and don't store a lot of fat in any one area, you can look great. So just recomp. You like the way you look, recomp. But when you train competitors, you got to go up and down. But who says you got to go up and down this much? Why does it have to be gain 30 pounds and lose 30 pounds? The research doesn't support it. I'm so glad people, finally, this is the first year I've seen people draw attention to it online. Because I've been saying this since like 2014. I made my first Facebook post about it. And I had this epiphany. Why are we bulking and cutting everyone? I had clients that were obese and they're bulking and cutting. Why would you bulk someone when they're, you know, above 25% body fat? What this is not. What are you doing? And you get these, and that like Evan said, these coaches that bulk every single competitor up. They don't care about you. No. You're chattel to them. You are chattel. And that's like probably a lot of the coaches out there. They do not care about you.
Fucking idiots.
They're fucking idiots.
They don't care.
They don't care about your. They don't care about your. You are. They look at you like, you're like my prized horses. Can you win me a medal?
Yep.
And they don't care about your psychology during the off season. And it's like, look, deal with it. This is the sport. Does it have to be the sport though? Do you have to is there any evidence that bigger bulks and bigger cuts are more effective than smaller bulks and cuts? Hovering around here, is there any evidence that this is better than this? You know, gain 8 pounds at a time, lose 8 pounds, but you don't have to get up. It depends on your body fat too. You know, if you're, like I said, I've never been lean enough. I don't need to be bulky and cut. I need to be getting leaner. I need to be cutting or recomping, but I will say there's a healthy, there's a happy medium that everyone likes the most. Because when you're the leanest, Paul said you'll get the most attention, but you go backstage and look at these girls. They look like they have huge glutes on stage. No. You go backstage, their glutes are tiny. They're flat as a board. Then they arch and they pose and you're like.
That's so true.
Like I remember my client Masa, you know, she's on the mural around the corner. And probably her best picture of herself is at my Vegas house. Her glutes look insane. And they were so flat at that point in time. It was crazy in real life, but it's the posing, it's the smoke and mirrors. But she didn't like the way your face is gaunt. The women are getting filler now. Yep. Anyway, there's a happy medium for, you know, like, yes, you're shredded, but you feel like crap. Men lose their sex drive. You have no energy. They're zoned out. You can't even pay attention. How are you going to do well in your career? Right. How are you going to make good money? You can't even pay attention for more than 30 seconds before zoning out. And everyone's different. Some people go crazy. You know, I've trained competitors that are like, you don't realize how selfish you're being too. Your poor partner has to deal with this thing that doesn't even make you any money. It's a hobby that ruins his life too. You're not fun anymore. And then they're like, my husband's complaining. Fuck him. I'm ready to leave him. He said he's going to divorce me. Go ahead. I'd like to see you divorce me. And I'm like, oh my God, trust me. You care about this. You do care. Like, trust me. You're not thinking clearly right now. I think we should back abort mission. And they're like, they're not thinking clearly. So everyone's different. But my point is, I tend to, you know, just get people strong, get people at a comfortable, the happy medium that they like. You can still make gains because you're not too lean. Because bodybuilders aren't going to make they're not going to make gains when you're 8% body fat, and your cortisol is up and your testosterone is down. Your hormones aren't optimized, but that doesn't apply to everyone. So the bulking and cutting doesn't. It can be strategic, or you could just maintain for a while, but you don't have to bulk like Evans. I like to see this being talked about because I remember the evidence-based bros. Every single one of them made posts saying, "Can you gain muscle in maintenance?" Sure, if you're a beginner, if you're coming back from a layoff, if you start using steroids. And I'm like, how come my clients have recomped for years on end? I have, like, my client Ashley Hudd. She's the girl deadlifting right there. She brought her belt in one notch every year for like 5 straight years. Stayed 132 the whole time.
Yeah. Another big reason I'm not a big fan of bulking with it is I do think like your fasting blood glucose insulin sensitivity is incredibly important. And when you start gaining body fat, your insulin sensitivity is going to drop. And there, at least what I've seen, there's a direct correlation. Once that insulin, that fasting blood glucose in the morning gets too high, you're going to put on body fat at a much quicker rate. Your lifts are going to suck, and your motivation is going to drop. And it's diminishing returns. It doesn't make any sense at that point to do it, does it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the research shows you don't make better muscular gains.
All right, guys. I
With a
think
slight surplus.
That's probably where we're going to wrap it up. We'll have Bret back on soon. If you're still listening to the podcast, comment below other questions you have for Bret so I can have him back on, or maybe comment some other guests you could have on.
Yeah, we'd love to hear guests you guys would like to have on. Topics, always looking for topics. So
Maybe another location that we do a live podcast. Maybe like the Olympia.
Ooh, that would be
Maybe Bret's
fun.
house for the Olympia.
Yes, that's my favorite
Yes.
house of yours. I love that place. I love
That's why he
Vegas.
moved
I love
there.
the mountains.
Same.
Don't ever let Bret come to your house. He will judge you hard.
To my house?
We'll talk later. Inside joke. All right, guys. Thank you for listening.
Okay.
Thank you guys for all your questions. We're now going to train and pose. We'll document it. If you're not following the Pro Physique Studio page, we'll have some content on there from today. But thank you for listening. Thank you to Reaction. Thank you to Bret.
Thank you.
Round
Thank
of
you for
applause
having me on.
Bret. Thank you for
My
having
pleasure.
us. He just turned 49, by the way. So happy birthday to him.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, man.
Thank you.
all
One
right,
more
guys.
year left.
Thank you for listening. George, we out. Cut it off.
Code.
Thank you, guys.